All right. This is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I'm your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined once again by my co-host, Brian Solomon. How's it going, Brian?
Going well. Happy to be here as always.
You were trying to enjoy the nice summer weather and just before you got on, trying to do this outside, and the landscapers would not allow it.
Right. The second we started talking, they started going to work. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I would rather be inside in this heat anyway, so I don't blame you. And joining us for the first time, a longtime PWI contributor, kind of wears many hats, Paul Pratt. How's it going?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be here and honored to join PWI to talk pro wrestling.
Yeah, and we got a lot to talk about this week, just since the last podcast. I mean, it feels like we had a few episodes there where things were a little slower, and everything happened from the last podcast to this one. You know, big shows from all the major companies. We had Saturday Night's Main Event. We had All In. We had Evolution, new women's champion. You know, all kinds of new world champions. I was at Slammiversary last night, and also news going ahead for SummerSlam, one of the biggest shows of the year, and one of the biggest stars in the company out, and now them kind of scrambling. So we'll talk all about that in just a moment. It might be a little shorter episode than usual because I got somewhere to be. But want to tell you about the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's got Chelsea Green on the cover. Our own Candice Cordelia interviewed her. I was hoping to have Candice on. Maybe we'll be able to do it in the next few weeks. But a lot in this issue, including something you did, Paul. It's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. We don't talk that much NWA here these days, but you have a really fun piece about Kenzie Page working with Natalia. What can you tell us about that? I mean, how big a deal? You know, I think Kenzie talked about this maybe being the most high profile NWA match since Cody and Nick Aldis. And there's been a little bit of a down period, I think, for NWA the last couple of years, but I agree that this was something that got a lot of attention. What was your take on how successful this was?
Well, Kenzie was particularly excited about this match. I think that the National Wrestling Alliance as a whole was extremely excited about it. It is something that was, I think, inspiring a lot of interest from fans. Natalia, Natty Neidhart is on this big tear throughout the indie circuit right now, while still signed with WWE, of course, and present on WWE programming. So she's been all over the wrestling landscape and National Wrestling Alliance at Crockett Cup. I'm wearing my Crockett Cup t-shirt. At Crockett Cup, she took on Kenzie Page, who is now approaching her full second year as the NWA World Women's Champion. It was a great match between the two, hard fought. And I think that many people would say that it might have stolen the show. It was something that many people were there to see specifically.
Yeah, it's such a, we were talking in the last episode, Brian, about how kind of the new era of WWE and wrestling as a whole is giving wrestlers all kinds of opportunities they didn't have before. I saw AJ Styles at Slammiversary last night, Natty working in NWA, and a lot of WWE wrestlers worked for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport over WrestleMania weekend. So I think that's great. I don't know how long it will last. I mean, do you think it spells kind of a new day for wrestling?
Yeah, it's a great thing for fans because it's funny. It depends when you grew up as a fan. For people like us, Al, I think when in the days when the WWF acted like no other wrestling existed and things like that. I mean, it's mind-blowing, and it's something you always dreamed about seeing. But it also harkens back to kind of like what wrestling was like before that, where wrestlers were freer to go from place to place, and there wasn't as much of a stigma, and if you were smart enough to read the magazines, you knew where they were going and everything. So I think it's pretty cool, and it opens up so many possibilities, because you have AEW has their companies that they work with. WWE has their companies that they're working with. Obviously, AEW and WWE aren't working with each other yet because you never know what the hell's going to happen, right? Yeah, but it's still so much amazing crossover that could happen.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to finally get to see the NWA in person. I guess later this summer, early fall. They're coming to Long Island for the 77th anniversary show, something like that.
Yeah, they're going to be in Long Island on August 16th for NWA 77, which is the 77th anniversary of the National Wrestling Alliance, and that is something that I think some people could say that perhaps that Slammiversary was just in Long Island could be something negative perhaps, but I think it's a positive because it shows what kind of interest the Long Island area has in professional wrestling. NWA is returning there, and their national promoter, Brian Idol, from that area, so knows that wrestling landscape pretty well.
Yeah, he reached out to me, and I didn't realize that I used to write about him when he was an indie worker out here on Long Island as Earl Cooter. I didn't know they were one at the same. So
what a name.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but the Paramount in Huntington, where they're running, is a much smaller venue. I think they'll do fine. I'm happy to see like all, we've been talking about how kind of house shows, at least WWE house shows, have become a thing in the past. So I don't get to see a lot of those. But now, if you've got NWA, if you've got TNA, kind of making local regular stops on Long Island, we'll talk more about Slammiversary a bit. But I could not believe the crowd in the UBS Arena last night when I heard that they were running UBS Arena, and seeing much bigger acts have a hard time unpacking the place. And they didn't pack the place, but they got close to 8,000 people. I mean, it looked great for a TNA show. So fantastic. I mean, it really kind of tells you about the health of the wrestling business right now. So I was really happy to see it. Anyhow, lots more in this issue. Pick it up at PWI-online.com. We've got, as I said, the Chelsea interview features on Ring of Honor, working with an indie in Georgia to help raise money for and kind of an unsung hero in the wrestling company. Features on Kosei Fujita from New Japan, the WWE AAA show, and a lot more. Again, PWI-online.com. Brian, we're meeting tomorrow, right, for our first PWI 500 meeting of the year. So maybe by this time tomorrow, there will be a semblance of a list. Or at least a top 10. I put together kind of my tentative top 10. I mean, I'm only one opinion, but it's exciting. Over the years, sometimes the issue is you get to that number 10 and you're already kind of scraping, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel, but like you're very, very much outside like the top guys. And I feel like it's maybe an opposite problem this year where there are some huge names that may not make the top 10. And it's not even an issue of activity. It's just that it's crowded. There's a lot of big stars to get up there. So looking forward to it. Again, PWI-online.com. All right, let's talk wrestling. Why don't we begin with All In, probably the biggest of all the shows, AEW's WrestleMania. Great reviews for sure. My take on it, and happy to hand off here, is if you like AEW and you like the product that they give you, then you will have loved this show. If you have a problem with AEW, you'll be very frustrated with this show because it was a very much an AEW show. And again, one of these deals where, and I've got my views on AEW. I didn't see it live, and I heard some of these rave reviews for some of these matches, including the main event, which Dave Meltzer gave something like 5 3/4 stars. That I was like, I've got to watch this. I saw it. I thought it was terrible. I mean, I thought, I guess, again, it depends on what you like. I thought Page and Moxley was awful. I think it's everything I don't like about AEW. I think it was unpleasant. I think it was just kind of gross. It was all over the place. If you tuned in the middle of the match, and we always talk, Brian, about like, the non-fan kind of taking a look. If you were a non-fan and you peeked in on this, you'd say, what the hell is this? I mean, there's just glass everywhere, and there's blood everywhere, and there's broken tables everywhere, and there's a bed of nails. I see 2 terrific wrestlers in there, and I just don't know why you got to go that route. It wasn't even like this was the blood feud to end all blood feuds, I
think they were treating it that way because of how much everybody hated Moxley and wanted to finally see him get dethroned. So even if the personal issue wasn't there, they were treating it as this is the end of the line for Moxley. That's the way I took it. But I think,
I mean, I had to over to you, but I appreciate some of the storytelling. I appreciated all the. It was very kind of WWE WrestleMania booking with all the people coming out in the end, and that was fine. And certainly happy that they took the belt off of Moxley. And I think Page is fine. I think he's a good guy to go with. But yeah, I didn't love it.
I think that, well, I have two opposite things to say. One thing positive I'll say as a devil's advocate is it, and I agree with you in that a lot of that stuff isn't for me as a fan, but you'd be surprised, I think, how much the crazy over the top violence does appeal, at least I think, to people who aren't even fans, who will get pulled in by that.
Yeah, maybe more
or not.
so. Yeah.
Who will be like, it's almost like an Attitude Era thing. Like, what the hell are they doing? What? He's filling the guy's car with concrete. You know what I mean? Like, just those kinds of things.
Pop up on your TikTok feed, and you're going to notice it. Yeah.
But I do think that AEW as a company, as a philosophy, talking about the whole sickos, the infamous sickos line from Tony Khan, at least on an official level, I don't think they're that concerned about pulling in the casual non-wrestling fan in the same way that WWE is and has always been interested in. I think they're just, or at least it's the lip service they pay, is they're happy with their devoted, dedicated fan base of diehards. And, AEW is just more of that kind of a product. So I don't think there's ever a reason to have a 7-hour wrestling event unless it's the Olympic trials or something. But it was almost like the one-upsmanship of the count of this crazy counter programming, because the way I took it, and I think the way we were meant to take it, was, okay, WWE has Saturday night's main event happening on the same day or whatever it was. I lost track of what day was what. Okay, we're going to put it on early in the day. Okay, now they're putting an NXT show on at the same time as us. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to run this damn thing through the whole show, work a day and night. We're going to drive them nuts. It's going to go so long that it's going to actually cut into Saturday night's main event. I think it was just this weird kind of counter programming vibe that was going on. But I couldn't believe it because I wasn't around during the day. I was planning to watch parts of it later. So because I had some things to do during the day, I was going to settle down at night. And I sat down to watch Saturday night's main event live. And I had a couple of friends with me, and they're going, somebody looked at his phone and they're going, All In is still on. I just couldn't believe it. It was like 8:30 at night. So, I mean, that was a decision, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, AEW is so fascinating this way that it really is like, two different people could be looking at almost like two different products. Because there are the people, I mean, to see, and not to put it all on Dave, he's one person, but and he speaks for a lot of people who I think share the same sentiment. This was like an all-time great show. And, 5 and 6 star matches up and down the card. And as I watched it, I liked a lot of it. But, another one, the Bucks, a match with Ospreay and Swerve. Again, I thought that was terrible. It really gets to be like, are we watching the same thing? But, to each his own. Paul, where are you? It's funny, we talked about NWA in some ways, this in terms of what NWA stands for and kind of the tradition of wrestling, it couldn't be more different than what AEW and other people disagree. They would say that this is exactly what wrestling should be. So where were you on All In?
For my tastes, the show simply is too long. Like, I think of wrestling from both, like, obviously the fan perspective is like, I want to be able to sit and enjoy a wrestling show. I don't want to like have to plan my entire day around it unless in fact I'm going to be going there live. And even if I'm going live, I don't want to sit for 7 hours. There's no way that I'm going to do that.
Worse. Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to do that. And as a lifelong wrestling fan, that doesn't make me less of a wrestling fan. That makes me a fan that somebody needs to program for, which is give me a 4-hour show, 3-hour show. I don't want to go sit at a movie for more than 3 hours. I thought that there were incredible patches of this show. There were spots in this show, segments in the show, matches in the show I thought were phenomenal and incredible. I've come to recognize that I'm not the target audience for AEW. It doesn't mean I dislike the product or that I'm not a fan of AEW. I'm not their target audience. So I have to watch it judiciously. I have to be mindful when I go into it. I think that the disconnect for me with AEW quite often is the messaging that they want to give, where that they are, they want to tout their successes in comparison to the alternative, the WWE, and they give something that's so incredibly different that I think that they should just stand on their own and what they are. I do not perceive that their fan base is going to grow tremendously because they're going for a very, very niche audience. And unless the niche audience grows, the viewership numbers and things of that nature are going to stay pretty much the same, because people might jump on if they add a new name or something of interest. But once they realize, for example, like thinking of wrestlers as actors, I might have loved an actor in XYZ movie, but I might not like them at all in the new movie that they're in and just immediately tune out. So that's how I look at their programming. Some of the matches, the match by match might be more for me. Show by show, probably not always for me.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said about not growing the audience. And we've had this discussion with Kevin, and I think Kevin has disagreed. But I really do think you look at the AEW product and they're super serving a certain kind of fan, and good for them. And if you are that fan, you love what you're getting.
Absolutely.
You loved AEW, you loved All In, all of that. But I agree. And I think the numbers show that, like, I don't think this could be scaled up, what they're doing. And, I look at TNA last night at Slammiversary, and it's sort of the opposite. I mean, here is a company that really has scaled up, over the last several years. So I don't know, what are the differences? I think very much.
I would challenge that though, Al. Is TNA scaling up, or are they really piggybacking on WWE?
Yes, I was about to make that point.
That's a huge distinction. Like, is that standalone TNA product scaling up, or have they made that deal with the devil, if you will, if they want to be their own entity to grow their product by the run over from WWE?
Yeah. I think it's somewhere in between. I think they absolutely benefited from working with WWE. That said, that was not the crowd last night was a crowd that knows TNA. They were singing Rick Williams or AJ Styles.
They were singing the AJ Styles theme song from 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, that to me was a sign that a lot of those people are the people that stuck around. But absolutely, the success of this show is connected to the crossover with NXT and WWE. There is no question about it. The other thing I wanted to ask about that, and I don't want to be the TNA wet blanket here, but I mean, I know the company's been around a very long time. And actually, when they started, I was still at WWE and they were our competition. I can't believe that they've never done a crowd bigger than 7,800 people in their entire history, because, I mean, they were once the number 2 company. I'm not doubting it, but I just can't believe that that's possible. I would have thought at their peak they were doing better numbers than that. I guess I'm wrong.
No, I mean, there was that one show, I guess, in London, which is, whenever you go, these American companies go to England, there's kind of a novelty factor, and they did a big number. But yeah, I remember being at Bound for Glory where they had Hulk Hogan versus Sting.
I was there.
Right. And it was there 2,500 people there, maybe?
See, I had no idea. See, I'm just clueless. It just looked like a big, huge crowd to me. I never thought about I assumed it was way bigger than that. Again, I guess I'm just way off and really bad at estimating crowd sizes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what I remember about that show in Philly was that it was one of these deals where everybody pushed together on one side. It's like the family photo. Everybody squeezing. Yeah. And most of the building was completely empty. And that was not the case with the UBS Arena last night. I think that they're benefiting from the relationship with WWE in another way, and I think this gets to what we were just talking about with AEW is beyond just taking WWE talent or borrowing WWE wrestlers. I think they're borrowing WWE booking. And the show last night, to me, felt like a good WWE show. in that there was kind of a mix of everything. There was storytelling, there was character development, there was big legends, and I thought I hated the main event. I thought the main event was terrible. But I thought up until then they did a really good job. It was a sports entertainment show, and I don't mean that negatively versus what AEW does, which is again it is, and they'll deny it, and the defenders will deny it. But let's talk about that Bucks Osprey a swerve match where again I think it's fascinating because two people will see a completely different match. Before I saw the whole match, I saw some of the highlights that leaked online. And some people were putting the highlights, and they kind of went viral. But that one exchange where they were, it was kind of like lightning round sort of spots back and forth. And some people were sharing that on social media as, look how amazing this is. And and a lot of people were sharing it like, look how ridiculous this is. I'd very much fall into the latter, where it didn't look anything like a fight. I mean, it was just something out of Cirque du Soleil, where you do this, then I do this, then you do this, and nobody sells anything. Everybody pops up. Everybody is kind of, and I get that, like, this is the magic of pro wrestling to some extent, but there's something to be said for trying to cover it up a little bit. But everybody's sort of feeding into the next thing. I thought it looked absolutely ridiculous, and that was a 10-second moment in that match. The whole match was basically that, spread out over however long it was. It was just big spot, big spot, big spot, big spot, big spot. No real transitions, no long-term selling. It was an indie match. It was like, look at all the cool moves I can do, and that's AEW at its absolute worst. And it is, and it's super telling. And this has always been a problem that two of the guys in that match are executive vice presidents, right? I mean, like they are kind of like forming the vision for the company, and that is their vision of a good wrestling match. And I just couldn't disagree more, Paul.
But from the flip side of their supporters, that is AEW at its best.
Yes, absolutely.
That's absolutely
right.
What they're looking for. And that is what they want. Again, that is not my style of wrestling. Like one of the things I always differentiate between is, this is indeed the buffet, right? Wrestling is the buffet, and I get to pick what I want. And there are other people who want something entirely different. And I've come to recognize that just because I strongly dislike something doesn't make it wrong. It makes it wrong for me. And I am clearly not their target audience. So that's why I personally pick and choose the matches. I mean, there were matches on that 7-hour show that I literally just got up and went to the other room and did other things because I wasn't even interested in the match, much less the moment by moment, move by move element of it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and but as we touched on, that it does limit your growth because there's the game changer wrestlings of the world where they have a very specific kind of product, and there's some number of fans that will seek that out, and because of that, they're very successful with that group. I do think when you are on Warner Brothers Television and HBO Max and TNT and TBS, but by necessity, you want to grow that audience. You want it to be mainstream, and I don't know that can be that mainstream. That said, as you said, Paul, also, I thought there were some great matches. I thought Tony Storm and Mercedes was really good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, terrific. I mean, I think that's the best thing on the show. And it was, to me, that's what a wrestling match is, right? And a good one where it looked like a fight. The personalities came through. You were emotionally invested, a satisfying ending, characters that were really over. All of that. I mean, that's I think that translates everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that was number one. That was the match I tuned in to see. The build for that match was exceptionally good. And what I liked most, I think, about that particular match is that I thought that the ending was a foregone conclusion until the very Dynamite beforehand, where they introduced Tony Storm's concept that I'm going to be the one person that you cannot beat. This is the one title you will not have. And that was the story I was wondering if they were going to tell, but they'd never introduced it. When they did that Dynamite before, it changed that match for me so that it was me on the kind of the edge of my seat. Are they going to go that route, or are they going to go the more accepted, the more prevalent concept of Mercedes Moné takes everything?
Yeah. Her first major loss since coming over, and I think they're right to double down on Tony Storm. I think it's the biggest act they have. Still waiting for her to headline the show. I don't know that this should have been the one. I think he could have done it, but I don't super blame them for not doing it. Real quick, I want to touch on something that you brought up, Brian, that I wasn't planning on talking about, but I do think it's part of the story of the last few weeks, and that's the counter programming aspect, and kind of our resident historian. We remember this from the Crockett days,
Sure. Khan himself has referenced it directly.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of it? I mean, is this smart business? Is it necessary at all? I mean, at some point, it just becomes like gamesmanship, and are you costing yourself more viewers than just choosing a different night to do it?
Well, look, it has to be said that WWE started this fight.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is just who they are as a company. This doesn't change no matter who, I guess, owns the thing, because I thought it was predatory to do in the 80s when they were doing it, even though technically there's nothing illegal about it. I thought it was underhanded, and I thought it was unnecessarily aggressive back then. I think it is now, but I'm also not running a multi-billion-dollar wrestling company, and I'm not I know I'm not that cutthroat kind of a person. So, but that is the way the wrestling business is. And on smaller levels, it's always been that way. I mean, running the same town. I wrote the book about the Sheik, where you had, for 3 or 4 years, you had the Sheik running Cobo Arena, Dick the Bruiser running the Olympia in the same city of Detroit on the same night. And they're fighting over, they're literally fighting over like 25,000 fans in the city of Detroit every Saturday night or every other Saturday night. And this is that writ large. It's just what it is. I think there's such a thing as going too far with it, where the fans get hurt and the fans get burnt out. There was another infamous one in Georgia in the early 70s with Ann Gunkel, when she was shut out of Georgia Championship Wrestling when her husband, Ray Gunkel, who was part owner, died. And she started her own group in opposition, and they were trying to run the Omni and things like that. And the NWA was going nuts, sending in talent. And sometimes when that happens, it happened in Montreal, the fans get burnt out and they stop showing up, or they just get the market gets oversaturated. Now, I don't think that's going to happen here, because it's a totally different thing, and you're talking about on a national scale, and it's a television product. But I do think it can hurt the fan experience. I mean, I don't know at the time this is being posted, but last weekend was not this one we're just passing. The one before that was insane. I mean, I love wrestling, but if you're the kind of person that likes to keep up with what's going on, you've got Friday night is Ring of Honor, Saturday, then you've got NXT going against AEW. Then at night there's the main event, but AEW is still going on. And then the next night there's another WWE show. I mean, that can cause some fatigue. And I think that's what causes people to choose a side, which is, I guess, what the companies want anyway. So, it's tough to be that pro wrestling fan. But I mean, what am I complaining about? There's so much great wrestling out there, but it's very difficult, certainly, to follow all of it. That's for sure. If you want,
yeah, I think it's always been seen as sort of like predatory and petty, but once upon a time it was effective, right? Because you were either watching WrestleMania 4 or you were watching Clash of the Champions. You weren't watching both. These days, you could just watch it later. I think that's what most people do, right? So all these different tactics don't keep you from watching anything. I guess they could keep you from watching it live, but I don't know how many people do it anyway. So I sort of wonder what's the point. I mean, it's like all that really comes through is the pettiness, and beyond that, I very much think for AEW, it's kind of a win that WWE bothers to do that. I mean, it's an acknowledgement that you're a competition, right? That why would you bother if they weren't some kind of threat to you?
Which I have to say on that front, that's one of the reasons why I don't think WWE needs to do this.
Right.
Because in all seriousness, I mean, any kind of real war for the number one position, I feel like is over. It really is over. And so why keep doing this? That's why some of it bothers me. It's almost like kicking someone when they're down. It's not, in 1987, 1988, Vince McMahon is trying to knock everybody out of the box. And for a little while there, it's anybody's game. I mean, hindsight is 2020, and you look back at the things that Crockett was doing and you realize that they never could have succeeded for various reasons, financially and things like that. But at the time, it seemed like anybody's game. And that's not the case right now. So you have to say, why are they doing this? It's like you're just beating, not that AEW is a dead horse, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, all right, you did it already. You won. They are firmly in the number 2 spot. I mean, now we've talked about this. It feels very much to me like WWE, part of WWE's end game with TNA, is to prop them up to the point where AEW becomes number 3. I really think that that's part of what they're trying to do here. And the only thing I think preventing that is TV exposure. AEW has much better TV penetration than TNA has. If that were to change or be on an equal playing field, I think that's a very possible outcome.
Yeah. I mean, I think what has helped TNA stick around for the last several years is also what's holding it back, which is the being owned by Anthem. So Anthem owning what was HD now, I don't know what they call it these days, Access, right? They'll always have a TV home there, but it's also TV home with limited exposure.
But there was something that came out recently from somebody there saying that despite the Access TV thing, like I don't think they're going to leave Access TV, but they are looking into a bigger TV home, maybe in addition to Access TV. Like they are looking at things. So I don't think they're that foolish to say, well, we can only be on this channel. If they really want to grow, I don't think they're gonna think that way.
I don't want to bounce all over the place, but I might return to TNA. But Paul, I want to ask you about, it came up the other big show of that weekend, Saturday night's main event, and really a couple big headlines coming out of it. One was the retirement of Goldberg. I was shocked by how good this was. I mean, I think it's one of the best matches in Goldberg's career, and everybody's going to put it on, give the credit to Gunther, and I think he certainly deserves a lot of it. But I think Goldberg more than held up his end at 58 years old. I think it was a really good match. And a fine farewell, I think, kind of spoiled later by, and this is just classic Goldberg, by his reaction and kind of crapping on WWE, and just, there was a timing issue, so his speech got cut short. As we just talked about, you could see it anyway, right? I mean, you go on YouTube and it's there. I don't know how big of an issue that has to be, but I was really disappointed in his reaction because it soured to me what was a really nice send-off. I mean, I think most wrestlers would be, should be so lucky to get that kind of send-off, working with one of the top guys in the business, him giving a lot to Goldberg, having one of the best matches of your career at 58 in front of your hometown with your family at ringside and some of your best friends. I mean, what more could you ask for? And then he kind of like bitches and moans that they cut his speech off. And I understand, like, you've got a vision of something going perfectly and having high standards and being disappointed. But I thought his reaction was a little unprofessional. What about you?
Well, I do think that we're talking about Goldberg, and I think this is an individual whose entire career has been colored by being in a very privileged position in every incident. Like, this person was chosen from a very young age in his in-ring experience to be the guy, and so he's gotten pretty much everything he wants and thinks that that's what he deserves. I think going into this moment, he probably absolutely had an idea or concept of how this should go, but this was a Saturday night's main event. This wasn't a situation like Ric Flair's last match, where people were buying a pay-per-view type of event to get his speech. I mean, I'm sure, absolutely certain that this speech in its entirety was captured and will be released later on streaming and DVD and all the other platforms because it's through WWE. In terms of the match, I thought it was better than expected. It went twice as long as expected. I don't know if that was because Seth Rollins' injury in the same show cut that match short and gave them more time than they needed. But I thought it was a great farewell for him. And he, if this indeed is his last match, went out looking in peak physical condition, put on a great match against the guy that WWE has selected. And it was, I mean, by all accounts, I think it lived up to everybody's expectation, except for perhaps people wanting him to win the championship.
Yeah. And I think that's where you get some obliviousness as to, and we've talked about, what Goldberg's place in wrestling is. I think, and he wouldn't be the first. I think he's got kind of an inflated idea of a perception of his place in history. I don't think anybody would put Goldberg on the Mount Rushmore of much of anything. Maybe WCW stars, that kind of thing. He was a star. You could quibble, and I think he would, about putting this on a Saturday Night's Main Event versus a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam. Is all to say, I think he wanted it to be a much bigger deal than it was. I think WWE looked at it and said, it's a big deal, but it is a certain level of a big deal. Saturday Night's Main Event, network television, a fine platform for it. And I think it was Brian. And I also think they did a pretty good job of kind of booking their way out of a tough situation. We talked about what do you either have, because the Goldberg match is having him run through somebody. You weren't going to do that with Gunther. But I think even now, I question whether they gave him too much for my liking. But they got a good match out of it. He got kind of the visual pinfall with the ref bump, that this notion that he could have pinned Gunther with the jackhammer if the ref was around, and he never got pinned. He got put to sleep, which is, how much more could you have taken care of Goldberg?
Right. And, not knowing what we know now, as I was watching the show with 20 minutes to go and the match is just starting, Paul, like you said, I'm going what the hell is this? He's not wrestling 20 minutes. Now, my assumption, and I think maybe other people thought this, I thought the Seth Rollins injury was a work.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was designed to lull you into the false sense of security. Goldberg wins the title from Gunther in 10 minutes or whatever. Seth Rollins comes out, cashes in, perfectly fine knee, beats Goldberg for the title. That's the way the show ends. That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm going, there's no way. Yeah, you thought that too, right? My friend said the same. My friend goes, I was thinking the same exact thing. And then I'm going, oh, man, there's only a few minutes left. They're not going to squeeze a cash in here, at least not something that big. This match is really going the distance. But you're right, Al. It was not a bad match. It was very good by Goldberg standards. And then he goes and, like you said, Paul, Goldberg is Goldberg. It's like the goodwill is just drained away. People were willing to go, all right, one more run. We'll tolerate it. Old Goldberg is back again. Okay, rah, rah, rah. And then he goes and he does that. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's Goldberg, because like you said, he got way, way more than anybody would have gotten of anybody that came out of, he is a pure WCW product, right? There is no WCW product historically in the last 20 years that's gotten the kind of positioning, respect, promotional power put behind him by WWE than Goldberg. They treat him pretty much like he's a homegrown entity, which he's not. And he's coasting on a really hot year and a half that he had over 25 years ago in another company. It's outlandish. And the fact that he should be thanking his lucky stars that the train is still going all these years later, then to sit there and quibble about all these things, is absolutely, it's mind-boggling. Yes.
Yeah. And again, there's a real, I think, obliviousness from Goldberg about how he is regarded in wrestling.
I think he thinks he is the counterpart of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes.
Because they were both really over and bald at the same time. And
yeah.
That's the way he looks at it.
And beyond that, I don't know if he knows or cares, but he's not well liked, right? I mean, like, find a lot of wrestlers that have good things to say about Goldberg. There's
Bret Hart.
Yeah. And I've interviewed the guy. Frankly, I thought he was a real jerk when I interviewed him.
I've interviewed him like 3 times, and I thought he was actually very nice, but we rarely talked about wrestling. I talked to him about film projects that he was doing and other things. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think he comes off really badly publicly. That Ariel Helwani interview after this, I think he comes off real bad. The WWE did a documentary looking at his streak, and I watched it, and it's sort of him candid. And again, I think it's a guy who I don't know, doesn't have like a real grasp on what his place in history is. And he was a sensation. I mean, he absolutely was. And if he said nothing after this match, I would have been very positive on it. Said, good for him. Glad he got his send off, and kudos to him for putting over Gunther as he should have, and all of that. But leave it to Goldberg to be Goldberg. You mentioned the other a big story, an unexpected one, Seth Rollins' injury, which for a while, I don't know that even now I fully know.
No,
right?
The pictures of him with his daughter, and he's hobbling on the crutches. I mean, that sold me. Unless he's going full on like Dusty Rhodes, Junkyard Dog with the gauze over his eyes when he got blinded by Michael Hayes. I mean, unless he's going to that level, I'm convinced that this is legit.
Has there been a diagnosis yet? Because that's one thing that I thought was odd, that even because the word was, oh, he's going to go to Alabama to see so-and-so doctor. And then it's like, yeah, he hasn't seen him yet, and we don't know yet what it is. And now we're 2 weeks in, and I don't know that has there been official word of what happened to him, and if a surgery is coming.
I don't know. I mean, it has been a little vague. I know that, but I mean, that could mean anything. I mean,
yes. And I don't mean to be conspiratorial. Nevertheless, assuming it is what it is, well, what terrible timing, right? I mean, like
it didn't look like much. That's the thing. It's like it goes back to Bruno Sammartino breaking his neck. The worst injuries in wrestling are from moves that look like nothing. Like everybody thought Stan Hansen broke his neck with the big lariat. No, he just messed up a body slam and Bruno landed wrong. So Seth comes down on his knee. It didn't even look that bad. I think that's what makes people doubt it. It didn't even look like a high impact thing, but we're conditioned to watching these guys work matches like they're superheroes. I mean, they're human beings. They have real human bodies, and the human body is very fragile,
Yeah. Paul, in terms of like what this means for Seth and what this means for WWE, I mean, every indication was that really the second half of this year was all about Seth Rollins, right? I mean, they were clearly gearing up for him winning the world title, being the guy. He kind of was the guy on Raw anyway. I mean, him and Heyman and that whole group were the centerpiece of Raw, and that's out the window maybe for a long time. The other way of looking at it potentially is this maybe a good thing for Braun and Bronson, in that there were certainly people who felt that they were too good to be kind of lackeys, just standing behind Seth, and now they get the stage. I mean, if they seem to be keeping the program going with Heyman and them as kind of the centerpiece, but now Bronson and Braun taking the lead and not just being henchmen for Seth. So, is there lemonade to be made here?
I think it's a trial by fire. I mean, that would be my opinion. It's trial by fire for Braun and Bronson. Look, they were positioned with Seth Rollins, in my estimation, to get more exposure, to gain that credibility the way that anybody would if they're in a major faction. And now, unfortunately for them, the centerpiece of that has been taken away, and they get to prove their worth. They're going to step into that spot. I mean, I thought that it was pretty telling that Heyman said, remember, he has all the way until, next year to cash in on this. I think what might end up happening is that we're going to see the role play in reverse of what they might have planned. I always thought that it was Seth Rollins comes into the position, the championship. Braun Breaker then needs to break away and, prove himself against Seth Rollins. They may do something along the lines of Braun Breaker is going to get that bigger push over the next coming months. And then he's going to be in the position where either Seth Rollins comes back and appears to steal the title from Braun Breaker, or Braun may be in that position already and Seth gets to reclaim it. So, I mean, either way, WWE always pivots extremely well. And I think that the beauty of what they've got going for them is they have so many top tier people who could be slotted in and use this as a testing ground for them to be that top guy or to find out if they have what it takes to be.
Yeah. And they're seeming to do some of that already. Roman is back. It looks like the original plan would have been Roman and Seth. Now maybe at SummerSlam, it looks like we might have Roman and Jay versus Bronson and Braun. But Brian, what do you see as the upside? We've talked about this probably about Braun Breaker. I mean, it does feel like this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And you saw it last week on Raw where he went through like 4 people. And you couldn't have tried to make a guy look stronger than he was up until he lost to Punk. But clearly, and we've been saying this for years, but they have the highest of hopes of Braun Breaker.
Yeah, and I think by having Heyman with him, I think he's in good hands, because any kind of weaknesses he has, maybe if he promos or whatever it is, not that I think he does, he's got Heyman there, and he's with him there for a reason. They're not. Paul Heyman doesn't go with mid-carders, and if it's somebody who, like a Cesaro, who he was with for 5 minutes, it's because they wanted to elevate them, and it just didn't work. Right.
Yeah.
So I think you could very well see a thing where this is the best thing that ever happened to Braun Breaker, because then he can sort of step up in that position. And like Paul said, you have this built-in thing where he doesn't want Seth to come back. It's like Seth is back now, and it's like, wait, I don't need you anymore. This was, they turned that into the angle. Your being out is the best thing that ever happened to me, and your time is over. It's built in. It's like perfectly built in. And if he can, I know we're talking about poor Bronson Reed like he doesn't exist, but I feel like this is more for the benefit of Braun Breaker. If he can manage that, the ball is in his court. It's one of those things where it'll go as far as he can take it.
Yeah, and I think you never wish injury on anybody, obviously, but I do think it creates an opportunity, and what it could do, hopefully, is expedite a process that otherwise tends to take too long for WWE, right? I mean, and that is becoming a main event guy. And we've been saying this about Braun, since the NXT 2.0 days. I mean, I think people identified him as something special. I think he was in NXT longer than people expected him to be.
Yeah.
And now,
I asked a question about it at one of the NXT media calls, and Shawn Michaels got annoyed with me. It was like I almost broke through his born again Christian thing. I was just like, is there a plan? I said, is there a plan at this point to bring him up?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, we have no plan at all. No plan whatsoever. He said something like that to me. But I'm like, guys, it's been years. I mean, what are you doing?
They do have a plan, but I do think that sometimes, especially with a younger guy, there is this feeling of we've got all the time in the world, and sometimes it takes something like this for them to do in 6 months what might have taken them 3 years to do. So.
But it also, not that I don't think the average fan who's watching for fun notices these things, but to someone like me, it sends the signal of maybe this guy either isn't as ready as they thought, or maybe he isn't as good as they thought. I mean, that's sort of like the signal I get, like, when maybe whether true or not, that's what that tells me sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that's I think there's discussion you had with Trick Williams, who I think we'll talk about in a minute, but like
Jade Cargill
still down there, like when are you calling up Trick Williams? The other big show of that weekend, Paul, Evolution, the second ever all women's pay-per-view, really good show. I think top to bottom people had good things to say about it, with a terrific main event and kind of a shocker, the Money Event cash-in and Naomi winning the title. One thing that I don't know that I would have called is how receptive people were to this whole thing. I mean, somebody coming in and spoiling a terrific match, but I think at the end, the feeling was a good one that like, oh, good for her. And I'll continue to say Naomi's doing the best work of her career. I think she's great right now. In the ring, she is what she is. I still think she's a little awkward sometimes, but she's really finding herself as a character on the mic. I think the presentation's great. I think she's sort of just letting loose and having fun. I really dug the promo that she gave the next night on Raw, and you could tell some of it was just kind of ad-libbing and her just kind of feeling out this character, and she's doing great. And I think she feels like a big deal now.
She does feel like a big deal now, and I am personally so happy for her, because the treatment that she was given when they kind of lured her back from TNA Impact was a little shocking to me. I mean, they gave her a lot of fanfare at first. She came in off this great run in Impact. They brought her back to fanfare, and then it felt like not much was being done with her. She was being included, but not presented very well, not presented like anything nearly a threat. And now with this character change, with her coming into herself, I love the character that she's playing. And I particularly did love the promo the day after, on Raw, where she said, no, you didn't feel the glow. So too late now.
Right, because they were getting behind her.
Yes. Don't do it. It's too late.
That's what she should be doing. Right.
Exactly. And this character, I think, suits her very well. And I love the fact that she's exploring that. In terms of Evolution as a whole, I loved that show. It was phenomenal. I liked it much better, honestly, than All In. But I was surprised as well with the reception that spoiling that great. It was like almost 30 minutes. I think it was 30 minutes plus of Io and Rhea. And then the ending kind of gets taken away.
Yeah.
And fans did respond.
They were fine with it.
Well. they were okay with it.
Yeah. Because they got to cash in. The cash-ins are always fun, but and now 20 years of Money in the Bank, you feel like you've seen it all. But this really wasn't anticipated in part because she moved brands to cash in. So I thought that was really good. Brian, one thing about that show, you're talking about too much over a one weekend, and I do think that the victim of it was Evolution, and I think if given a little more time and a little more space on a weekend by itself. This did feel a little bit lost. Word was that the ticket sales weren't, great by WWE standards.
Yeah.
And it did feel like they had so much to promote. It didn't get the focus that a PLE typically does. Even though at the presentation that night I thought was really good. I mean, I thought having Stephanie there, and they did a nice job of really driving home kind of the historic significance and how far women's wrestling came, but it did feel a little kind of lost in the crowd.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of push happening, because you also had Saturday night's main event going on. You had NXT Great American Bash with there was, and they're already building towards SummerSlam. So it wasn't as, and it's also the second. The first Evolution obviously has the advantage because it was so unique. I mean, although it's been a very long time, I don't know if they're going to wait 7 years until the next one or however long it was. I felt the same way about the main event, though. I know I'm in the minority there, and I'm definitely tired of the Money in the Bank concept. It's like, because it's so weird, because it does create that scenario where people get cheered who aren't supposed to get cheered, or if a baby face wins it that way, it starts them off on the wrong foot, like what happened with
Damon Priest was one.
Yeah, and who beat Ronda Rousey? Oh man, the one who's
I can't picture either. Yes.
The one who was with Dominic Mysterio.
Yes, her.
Liv Morgan, you're going to have to make me sound smarter, Al. But that set her off on the wrong foot. She was a baby face, and she beat an exhausted Ronda Rousey. A big deal, So, and also the other thing was, Rhea Ripley basically tries to, the match is out of control. They start out as friends. Hey, we're friends. We're nice. Referee gets knocked out. Rhea Ripley essentially tries to murder Io Sky, drags her all over the arena, her supposed friend who she respects. And then at the end, they're on the ramp hugging each other like nothing happened, and they're the best of pals. Like, I felt like something could have been done with that. Like, wait a minute. You just, you said you respected me, and then you tried to kill me out there. That wasn't just a wrestling match. You were trying to like cripple me, put me in the hospital or something. Like, they could have done something with that. Instead, they just basically took a bow at the end. That I didn't like either, but it was a great match before the ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, looking ahead now to a SummerSlam. We've got, a lot of the card already in place. The main event for both nights. You got Punk and Gunther for the world title, Cody and Cena in the street fight now. Jelly Rolls in there. We got the women's matches. What do you think of the card? Does it feel like a big deal? Is it something you're really looking forward to?
I mean, we've got the obligatory celebrity inclusion. That's always a given. Is this card piquing my interest at this point? Not exactly. Mm-hmm. Will I still tune in? Yes.
Yeah. Brian, how about you? Does the street fight stipulation to the Cody Cena match get you much more excited? Do you need to be much more excited? Or are you already very excited?
Well, I know that if memory serves, back when WWE was still doing house shows way back in 2024, and even before that, Cody was doing tons of street fights. They just weren't on TV. So, that could be something special in the sense that he did so many of them that maybe, it'll turn out to be a really well put together match. However,
broken glass, a bed of nails.
They're not going to. First of all, they're not going to do stuff like that. Second of all, the problem is Cena, really, more than anything else. I mean, the thing is,
helps, right? I mean,
Cena can barely muster what he needs to get the job done in a regular match between the ropes. So I don't know what's going to happen in a street fight situation. I'm also wondering, like we talked about, where this goes, because if we've all made the assumption that Cena is going to hold the title till the end of this retirement tour, maybe that's not the case. Maybe Cody's getting it back at SummerSlam. I don't know. I mean, if not, then that means he's going to have to lose, or something's going to have to happen, and that would be losing twice to Cena in I'm sure a very fishy, questionable way. So I almost feel like, in a way, he has to win. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
It's a street fight. It opens the door for anything to happen,
right?
Interference,
and gives Cena that victory,
right? Yeah, but that's what he did at WrestleMania too. Even though it wasn't a street fight, he still kind of like pulled out all these crazy shortcuts and wound up winning. Maybe stranger things have happened. This could be the moment where Cena goes back to being babyface.
Yeah, I feel
like they've even teased that. There've been a couple of times where he had that like heel Bob Backlund looking at your hands moment. I mean, he did that a few times where what have I become? That kind of thing. I mean, they're teasing it. It could happen.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. And maybe they just have something completely different planned for the second half of this run. I also think that street fight stipulation could set up Cody getting screwed somehow, and maybe setting up what his next opponent is. I mean, is there some kind of betrayal? Is there some kind of run-in or something?
And it's also possible, now that I think about it, the street fight, in the same way as what we saw happen at WrestleMania with The Rock, where basically The Rock just decided 5 minutes in that it was going to be a street fight in the middle of the match. It could be a way actually to protect Cena, because sometimes those garbage matches are done because of the very fact that this is a guy who can't really leave his feet anymore,
Yeah. Last thing, I want to talk a little bit about Slammiversary last night. Again, I really enjoyed the show. I think TNA has a really good product right now, but did want to talk a little more about this WWE TNA relationship and, kind of what's in it for TNA, because I was flabbergasted at the decision to leave the title on Trick Williams. Mike Santana, so over in the UBS arena, a local guy, And really, like, I think he looks great. I think he looks like a star. Has gotten himself in really good shape, has a real connection with fans. And it's one of these deals that, like, if not now, when? I mean, when all the stars align, and it is New York, the biggest crowd they've ever run, one of the biggest shows ever. The guy is hot, and you leave it on Trick, and in a really disappointed kind of wet blanket finish. I think everybody, they had a super hot crowd that went home really disappointed, and I don't doubt that at some point they put that belt on Mike Santana, but why not do it in New York? It blew my mind. But also on that night, you've got JC Jane winning the NXT the TNA title, so both world titles on the hands of WWE developmental wrestlers now. And I think about this even for, like, in terms of the PWI 500, where we would always think of who was the dominant TNA world champion pretty high in the mix. But if they are acknowledging and saying, like, our world champion is somewhere below WWE's developmental, stars, in that now both your world titles are in the hands of farm system people in WWE. I think it's a little bit kind of like eating crow, where it is they're really humbling themselves in this relationship with WWE, where they have to acknowledge, yes, we are very much subservient to you. You guys are number one by a mile. But if they don't do that, do they have 6,800 people in the UBS arena? So this is all to say, and Paul, I'll ask you, what is, like, the pros and cons and what is that balance for TNA working with WWE?
As I was watching Slammiversary, which is a good show. It's a great show. In fact, there's a lot of high points to it. When JC Jane took the title off of Masha Slamovich, in my mind, there was only one outcome for the main event later on, and that is that the TNA world title returns to somebody, right, either Joe Hendry or Mike Santana. When that did not come to pass, when the outcome was 2 TNA world titles on members of NXT roster, it said to me that they have gone all in, so to speak, on this relationship. Whatever you need from us, we're going to do for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that for them, that the trade-off was getting to have AJ Styles, that it was getting to have whatever 8,500 people or whatever they said was there that night, being mentioned repeatedly on WWE TV. But in terms of what it would do, my perception, I think that our perception as members of Pro Wrestling Illustrated community is different perhaps than perception of an NXT fan. They look at that as their favorite product. And so these are similarly positioned, TNA, NXT similarly positioned. I don't. I look at it as exactly what you said. This is a feeder system for WWE, and how far down in the feeder system is TNA, because it would just not, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. But is it also just realistic? I mean, are they right that they are that far down? And you could certainly make an argument that yes, TNA is somewhere well below NXT.
Well, that's the thing. It's a perception thing, because I think you're both right. The thing is, Al, they are pretty far down. There are more eyes on NXT than there are on TNA. Yep. There are more eyes on NXT than there are right now on AEW. I mean, that's a provable fact. But that may not be something that TNA definitely, kind of wants to underline in the public view, because wrestling is about illusion. And we talk about world champions. You have a TNA quote unquote world champion who is, that title in reality is certainly below the NXT championship. Absolutely it is. But in the fairy tale world of professional wrestling kayfabe, it's not. So, I mean, do you want to, emphasize that for fans or not? It is like that devil's bargain. You can have everything you want. You could have the exposure. You can have the more people watching, but you're going to be exposed as being the minor leagues. You're not, this isn't going to be the World Series, when it couldn't have been any clearer to see what happened with Joe Hendry and Randy Orton at WrestleMania.
Right.
And I'm sorry, just being on the WrestleMania card is not always a net positive. You can ask SD Jones that question, or you can ask Adam Baum that question. I mean, yes, there is such a thing as getting buried at WrestleMania, and Joe Hendry was, because in the world of the TNA fan and the people who say, well, this is a world championship, Joe Hendry should have been going against Cody Rhodes, world champion versus world champion, right? But in reality, they're never going to do that because he's nowhere near at the level of a Cody Rhodes. And that title isn't at the level of the WWE title. So it's like, how much do you want to underline the reality of it or not? It's almost like you can't have it both ways. You can't win.
Yeah, but is the fact that they're having some success now from a business standpoint, does it kind of confirm that this is the right approach? Because I do think that, whether it was Scott D'Amore or Dixie Carter, I think there would have been leadership at different times that would have been more resistant toward, kind of being this subservient to WWE. I remember having a conversation with someone in TNA once who, with a straight face, this is within the last 5 years or so, was trying to argue that WWE and TNA are equal. I remember saying that it's like the Yankees and the Mets. And I'm like, no, it's not,
The Yankees and the Cyclones.
Yeah. But now on one hand, again, it's sort of like, take your medicine, accept that you are far, far below us. But in doing that, your, business will go up. So I think it is a trade-off, and one they're, from a bottom line standpoint, they're more than happy to make. I mean, they will gladly take 8,000 people in an arena, if it just means acknowledging that, like, okay, we're somewhere below WWE's developmental system. Real quick, I'll just say a lot of fun stuff. The AJ Styles return was perfectly done. I love the exchange with Leon Slater. I thought Leon Slater looked like a star coming out of that match with Moose. I enjoyed the ladder match, the rope ladder that came down. I mean, at this point, like, it really is, we've seen everything with ladder matches. So when they pulled the spot with the rope ladder, I just got a huge kick out of it. And top to bottom, I thought a really fun show with kind of a lousy, disappointing main event. All right, I got to run, but want to real quick, Paul, before I do, anything that you want to promote? You do a lot for the magazine, and I know you do a lot outside of PWI in the wrestling space. What do you want to plug here?
The only thing I would like to plug, my X handle in the scroll is not correct.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
It's okay. it's my X handle is the Glamazon PDM. Otherwise, I've had a blast with you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate everything.
I wish you had said something earlier. I had spent an hour.
It's all right. I didn't want to disrupt us for my personal needs. It's not even that big of a deal.
Yes. But thank you so much, Paul. And Brian, how are things coming along with the book and anything else?
All right. So Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. The cover is out there. The front and back cover I've shared. The book trailer I've shared. So which I made myself. So people should seek it out. It's all over.
I saw it. Yes. So that's what you decided on. Yes. And it is the quintessential Gorilla Monsoon photo. When I think about him, that's what he looks like.
I know. And it's a WWE official photo, which I think, although I think the Andre the Giant book had one, I think this might be the only non-WWE book to have an actual licensed WWE photo on the cover. And there's more of them on the inside. They've been more than helpful. It's very unusual. I mean, this is definitely a new era. But yeah, we went with that picture and the font, which is like the classic, Wrestling Challenge, Wrestling Superstars font when they would have the wrestlers' names below in the lower third of the screen and all that stuff. Which was recommended to me by a great friend of mine named Brian Kuntzman, who works at WWE as a producer. So that idea was his, but it's very, very close and it's going to press probably very soon. Final approvals are happening. I'm working with the audiobook company. I'm trying to politic my way into getting allowed to narrate the book myself instead of having someone else mispronounce all the names in the book. Yeah. So we'll see if that happens, hopefully. So there's that. And there's the Patreon that I've got, patreon.com/shutupandwrestle. People can go there. I've got watch along commentaries. I've got old magazine scans. I've got archives of my old articles on there and all kinds of random things.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much. Paul, we'll have you back on before long. We really appreciate it. Everybody, go to PWI-online.com, pick up the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and we will be back soon.
Take care.